The morning was cold enough for my breath to cloud in front of me. I stood with my back pressed to the corrugated metal wall of the factory, hands numb even inside my jacket pockets. The dawn was chalk gray. Paris filtered through winter smog, lights flickering off in the distant apartments as people prepared for another day. The manager called names off a list, voice echoing down the stained concrete corridor. My name came last, and not with any ceremony. Just a tilt of his head. C'est fini, Luc. We'll send your check by mail. The other night shift workers looked everywhere except at me as I walked the length of the floor, boots sticking to old chemical stains. There was nowhere left to look but forward, but I still glanced back twice, half expecting someone to call me, to admit a mistake. It didn't happen. I walked through the big rolling door into dawn and heard it slam behind me. That's how my family heard about the firing, from a neighbor who worked the day shift. They didn't even bother to ask me for details. At breakfast, my mother told me to take off my jacket so I wouldn't track in the smell of ammonia. My father was sitting with his nose deep in Le Parisien. My younger brother, always quick with a sneer, waited for me to speak. I stared at my hands, red and chapped. My mother served coffee, but didn't meet my gaze. So, will you find another shift? No one said, did you try? No one asked about severance or unfairness, or how I felt watching the door close. Instead, she went on, we don't have money for you to be idle, Luc. I have a plan, I said, sounding braver than I felt. I'll start something of my own. My father lowered his newspaper. You were fired, he said. You don't even have enough to pay utilities. What will you start? I tried to explain. Software as a service, business tools for small suppliers, made in French. Not imported, not buggy English translations, but something that would treat the cafes and the bakeries and the little shops in Paris like real businesses. I drew wild shapes in the air with my hands, hoping they could see the map of it, the brilliance in all the moving parts. My brother threw his spoon into his bowl and stood. You failed, he said. Stop pretending you're some genius. Outside, the church bells rang for 7. My father shook his head and went back to his paper. My mother started scraping plates. Don't come to me for money, she said. That morning, I left for my friend Amina's apartment, dragging a canvas bag with my ancient laptop inside. She lived up 6 stories with no elevator, in a place that always smelled of cumin and bird bread. She was waiting at the door, face serious. They let you go? I nodded. I'm going to make something. Will you help? She opened the door fully, stepping back to let me in. Of course. For 6 months, this was my world. The humming laptop, the chipped coffee table, late nights with Amina passing her old textbooks over to me, the sun moving through her little window, coding until my shoulder ached, halfway through a meal, fingers sticky with bread because I couldn't stop. When we met others at cafes, Amina would nudge me under the table if I started rambling about elastic scaling or hybrid clouds, reminding me to speak in plain French. It was hard, though. To most people, it sounded like science fiction or madness. Back at home, things got even colder. My mother slipped me leftover groceries wrapped in old newspaper. My father told me about jobs in waste collection or painting apartments. My brother whispered on the phone late at night. Sometimes I'd catch fragments. He's still at it. We, the fool. I lay awake listening to the lift in his voice, the way he wanted me to fail. When word spread around our arrondissement, it became a joke. My aunt, who lived 3 blocks over, invited me to dinner and asked me, through pinched lips, if I wanted real work or just to play at computers. At a family wedding, my uncle called me Monsieur Zuckerberg and made a show of shaking my hand like I was a foreign dignitary. People laughed. It would have been less humiliating if they had just ignored me. But I kept at it. Slowly, something began to take shape, a working product, A dashboard, crisp lines, basics first. Inventory tracking, invoices, nothing fancy. I took quiet joy in every working page, every button clicked that didn't crash the whole program. When Amina's cousin, who ran a fruit and cheese stall at Marché Dalid, tried it out, she told me it worked like it belonged in a proper shop. I held on to that for weeks. Still, nothing moved fast. I biked everywhere with flyers in my bag, visiting every bakery and tailor. Most people nodded, said they'd think about it. Some were kind. Some, like the owner of the boucherie under my parents' apartment, rolled their eyes. People have been running shops in Paris for 1,000 years without your app. Enough, he said, slamming a blood-soaked cloth onto his counter. During those months, I slipped deeper into myself. There was a tightness in my chest, a pressure under my ribs that never let up. When my phone rang, I flinched. When anyone asked me, "How's your little project?" I smiled tightly, heart thrumming, and changed the subject. I got my first real client a full year after leaving the factory. A new cafe on Rue de Faubourg Saint-Antoine. They paid in cash, folding the bills awkwardly, as if unsure I deserved it. I took a bus home, hand on my pocket. Later, I counted out each euro with Amina, laughing until we cried. From then, it was slow progress. 2 clients, then 4, then 10. The product improved and the numbers climbed. It wasn't glamorous, not unicorn startup fireworks. It was just steady, solid work. I rented a tiny co-working desk by Canal Saint-Martin with the first trickle of proper cash. Still, my family never relented. Even years later, when I bumped into distant cousins, it was the same. "Luke, still writing emails all day? Luke, any real job yet?" One aunt told her neighbor's daughter that I'd fallen off the map. My brother visited from time to time, checking on our parents, and once let slip, I told them you'd give up. But I didn't give up. I built. I hired a second developer. The product spread by word of mouth, slowly, the way plants keep through cracks in city stone. Then, almost overnight, one change. An influential business journal ran an article on local Parisian tech. I was the closing paragraph. The homegrown SaaS for local businesses. Paris's quiet digital revolution. New requests filled my inbox within days. When the news came that a major hardware supplier was interested in licensing our platform, I stared at the email so long, Amina had to tip my chair back to break my trance. It was a 6-figure deal, the kind of money everyone said I'd never see. I signed it in a trembling hand. Not long after, I moved offices for the 3rd time, this one just outside Place de la République. Glass doors and polished floors, the kind of place that made people straighten their posture as they walked in. The staff grew. A handful at first, then more. 5, then 12. My name was on contracts, on the buzzer at the front door, printed on business cards that felt like tiny lottery tickets. Years slipped by in a quiet whirl. I bought my mother a new refrigerator and paid my father's overdue parking bills. I didn't tell anyone about the new company car or the investors or the office espresso machine. I figured they'd see it soon enough. One Friday, after a call from my mother about a leaking pipe, I decided to visit home. The streets in our arrondissement still smelled like coffee, car exhaust, and the distant warmth of baguettes fresh from the oven. The apartment was the same peeling yellow wallpaper, a squeaky hallway floorboard. But this time, when my mother opened the door, she hesitated just a second. She wasn't sure how to greet me. "I'm here to help with the pipe," I said. She led me to the sink, silent, watching my reflection in the window as I fixed the joint. When I finished, my father was sitting in his armchair, newspaper folded on his lap, the evening news playing in the background. "So," he said, "still doing your software?" "Yes." "Does it pay you?" "Very well." He made a curious sound, not quite skepticism, not quite approval. I wanted to ask him something, but a new tightness in my chest made me wait. That Sunday,